Hello, I'm Bob Schieffer, and welcome to the CBS Evening News online edition. Just ahead, the Rove question. It's followed the president all the way to the summit in Argentina. John Roberts has details. Also, making friends in Iraq. Sometimes all it takes is a soccer ball. That's tonight's Inside Story. And getting stuck with a bill. Our consumer alert shows what can happen when your cell phone is stolen. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News online edition. Well, no rest for the weary. Surely that thought must have crossed the president's mind. He left Washington, the CIA leak scandal, and the indictment of a top White House aide, only to arrive at a big international summit in Argentina, where he found new questions, not about the summit, but about the scandal back home. And if that weren't enough, in the streets of the summit city, he faced anti-American riots and demonstrations stirred up by Venezuela's left-leaning leader, Hugo Chavez. We're going first to John Roberts with the president.
President Bush was thankful for the chance to get out of Washington. But it didn't take long for Washington to catch up with him.
Did Karl Rove tell you the truth about his role in the CIA leak case?
I have told you before that I'm not going to discuss the investigation until it's completed.
Are there discussions in the White House about whether or not Karl will remain in his job?
The investigation on Karl, as you know, is not complete, and therefore I will not comment about him and or the investigation.
The president wouldn't talk about Karl Rove or possible staff shakeups, but he's under growing pressure to fix the problem, and fast. No one wants Karl Rove to go, one House Republican told me. He's too important to the party. But it looks like the White House doesn't have a strategy, and that frustrates everyone. And it's not just the CIA leak investigation dogging President Bush here. Anti-U.S. protesters arrived by the trainload in Mar del Plata this morning. In a now typical summit scene, a small group of troublemakers clashed with riot police just blocks from where the leaders were meeting. They threw Molotov cocktails, set a bank on fire, got tear gas and rubber bullets in return. What was different was the protest rally in the main stadium, led by Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, a summit participant.
Chavez is still angry over what he saw as a U.S.-backed attempt to oust him from power in 2002. Since then, he's tried to position himself as an effective counterweight to President Bush in this region, spending billions of dollars of Venezuela's oil wealth to win friends and influence people.
Chavez wants to bury the president's dream of a free trade zone from Alaska to Argentina, and it seems just generally annoy Mr. Bush. This week, Chavez threatened to give Venezuela's American-made F-16s to Cuba and China so they could have a good look inside. How does the president plan to handle such provocations?
Well, I will, of course, be polite. That's what the American people expect their president to do, is to be a polite person. And I will, if I run across him, I will do just that.
President Bush can easily beat back the challenge from Chavez, but with protests here and distractions continuing back home, it's likely that this won't be your typical all smiles and handshake summit. Bob?
Well, John, I think we ought to underline what you just said in the piece, that these demonstrations were stirred up by someone who is no friend of the United States. In fact, Hugo Chavez is Fidel Castro's best friend. But do you expect more of this rioting down there, or is it now tapered off?
The big demonstrations were planned only for today, Bob. Of course, there are thousands of people who have come into town from Buenos Aires and other cities around the region, even some other countries, and it's likely that they're not going to be going home soon. So there's a pretty good chance that I would expect tomorrow they'll be back out in the streets. As for whether or not there'll be any more violence, it depends on how hard police tamp down on that tonight.
And meanwhile, back in Washington, let's bring in our correspondent, Gloria Borger, who's in the Capitol tonight. Gloria, the president wouldn't talk about Karl Rove and what's going on over there, but is he doing anything about this situation now?
Well, I think right now, Bob, Karl Rove is back here in Washington working very closely with White House aides on nothing less than relaunching this presidency. They realize they have to come up with an agenda. They intend to do that in the State of the Union address in January. They're talking about bringing back compassionate conservatism. Remember that? That's something that this president ran on when he was first elected. Perhaps a new energy bill. But Rove is working with senior White House staff on coming up with that agenda. The only saving grace, Bob, is that Democrats don't have an agenda either.
Well, he's going to need a lot of to help from the Congress, for one thing. Do you think the Republicans up there, how are they going to help him?
Well, as John was pointing out, Republicans are getting kind of antsy right now. You know, this is a White House when it was popular. It was considered kind of arrogant by Republicans on the Hill. They didn't really consult with Republicans very much. And so it's worse now because this president isn't popular. He doesn't have a well to go to in the House of Representatives. He's got a lot of problems.
All right. Well, thank you both. 2 more American soldiers have been killed in Iraq, one by a roadside bomb in eastern Baghdad, the other in an accident south of the capital. Elsewhere today, insurgent ambushes and mortar attacks killed about a dozen Iraqi police, soldiers, and civilians. Despite such violence, many Iraqi families spent today peacefully celebrating the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. At the same time, some American soldiers are redefining the term war game. Actually, they're doing it in a way that every Iraqi can understand. Here's Alan Pizzi now with the inside story.
It may look like the start of another routine run through the mean streets of Baghdad, but this patrol is on its way to make use of a new and unique counterinsurgency weapon.
10 vehicles.
Once they leave the confines of the green zone, however, it will become serious business.
Any word on what happened at Checkpoint 1?
The convoy is headed for a soccer stadium a few miles away, not to look for enemies, but to make friends. They're dropping off more than $30,000 worth of soccer equipment, courtesy of Captain John Agnello, a soccer dad far from home. Hundreds of emails and dozens of phone calls to friends grew into sponsorship for an Iraqi sports club.
Everything that we have here is donated from different organizations, and it's great to show that the American people really do care about what we are doing here and what the Iraqi people's future is.
Soccer is a passion here, and the soldiers noticed giving out soccer balls when they were on patrol seemed to make them less scary to kids.
We donated a whole lot of good stuff.
This is one of the few places where the sound of play replaces the sound of gunfire.
The firepower necessary for even a simple goodwill gesture like this is a telling example of just how precarious the security situation is here. Even missions to a place that so obviously welcomes the coalition have to be treated as combat ready at any moment.
The obvious question is, why bother taking the risk?
Over a period of time, you may find out that some of these guys that interact with you playing soccer may actually come up and tell you where a weapons cache is or where a terrorist lives.
The best way for us to win a counterinsurgency is to build relationships. We all know it's easy to win the war, it's hard to win the peace.
Which is why a soldier in combat gear being faked out by a kid with a soccer ball scores one for the good guys. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Baghdad.
There are few things that we Americans depend on more than our cell phones, and few things we lose more often. Here in New York, for instance, cell phones are the most frequently lost items on the subways. And losing a cell phone can cost a lot more than the price of the phone. Here's John Blackstone with our Friday Consumer Alert.
While Wendy Wynn was away on vacation, she didn't realize back home in San Francisco her cell phone had been stolen, and someone was running up a huge bill.
It was to places like Guatemala, El Salvador, places that I obviously had never called before.
Her usual bill is under $50. This one was $26,000, and her carrier, Singular Wireless, demanded payment.
They expected you to pay $26,000 for calls that someone else had made?
Yes.
Our customers are responsible for unauthorized charges before they contact Singular.
In Chicago, Lauren Artosky didn't know her cell phone had been stolen until she was charged $4,000 for calls to Europe and Africa. Her mother called the provider, T-Mobile.
They said, "Listen, honey, we see this all the time. Just pay it and be more careful next time."
By law, if you lose your credit card, your liability is limited to just $50. But the same laws don't apply to cell phones, and cell phone companies like it that way.
They want no regulation.
Jeff Brown of the California Public Utilities Commission pushed hard for a cell phone customer's Bill of Rights. He was defeated, he says, by a politically powerful industry.
I was disgusted by the pressure, but I understood where it was coming from. The enormous financial contributions that are made to politicians.
Some legislators think we need a law for everything.
John Wall speaks for the cell phone industry, which he says serves consumers well without regulation.
We have delivered product that people love. That's why we have nearly 200 million subscribers right now.
But the Better Business Bureau gets more complaints about cell phone companies than any other business. Still, no state regulations protect consumers.
I consider it a crime against the public.
The industry says it tries hard to keep customers happy. But Singular pursued Wendy Wynn for months for $26,000. Only after she told her story to KPIX TV in San Francisco did Singular drop the charges. And after Lauren Ortosky told WBBM TV in Chicago about her $4,000 bill, T-Mobile cut it to $1,200. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
More stories are just a click away, but don't forget to join me on television for the on-air edition of the CBS Evening News. On Monday's broadcast, Pint-Sized Consumers. Researchers asked a group of young people to shop for a pretend party. What they bought may surprise you. It certainly surprised their parents. For CBSNews.com, I'm Bob Schieffer.